Norman Kelley joins us now in our studio. He is a freelance journalist. He's written for The Nation, The Village Voice, and other publications, and he has a new book out called The Head Negro in Charge Syndrome, The Dead End of Black Politics. What is the dead end of black politics?
Black politics has simply collapsed.
Why?
There's no ideas going on anymore. There's no vision, and there's no mechanism to solve problems. I mean, the fact that Al Sharpton ran for the presidential election and I think collected about, what, less than 30 delegates, then it was revealed in the Village Voice that he was getting money from the Republicans, a dirty trickster by the name of Roger Stone, and black America, particularly black leadership, said nothing about it. Shows you that he's pretty much collapsed.
A quote from your book: today's black elected leaders are a comprador class, intermediaries whose sole function is to channel black votes into the Democratic Party apparatus while the party ignores black needs and gears its programs to white suburban voters or Reagan Democrats.
Yes.
So now what?
Well, now what? There's nothing going on. There's nothing, nobody's saying anything, nobody's doing anything.
Outline the problem for us a little bit more in depth, maybe by showing the graphic that you have on the front of your book. What is this?
Well, on the cover I have Martin Luther King, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, Louis Farrakhan, and Cornel West. Now, originally it should have been the other way around after Jesse Jackson. It should have been, Jesse Jackson is the first post-HNIC, head Negro in charge. Louis Farrakhan is the second head Negro in charge. And Al Sharpton may be the third head Negro in charge. And then there's Cornel West, who basically is part of the problem also in the fact that black intellectuals really don't say anything. He's emblematic of a trend in which black intellectuals are market intellectuals. They basically sell attitude to the public, but they really don't say anything or organize anything to help people figure out what is going on. And what is going on is that there's nothing going on.
What are they sitting, what are their faces sitting in here?
Oh, they're Matryoshka dolls, Russian nesting dolls.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it basically is. Supposedly, the whole idea was that each of these people rests within Martin Luther King, who I don't consider an HNIC, because he was actually an effective leader in the sense that he basically helped end segregation down south. He basically articulated what was going on for about a 10-year period. But after him, from about 70 up until the 80s, when you had the rise of the Black Congressional Caucus, you have the NAACP, you had the Urban League. From a 10-year period, which I call the golden age of integration, blacks were able to move an agenda. But when Reagan came into office, that's when you see the collapse of black politics, because when the Reagan administration came in, they were pretty much hostile towards civil rights and black advancement. And you don't really, if you really go back and think of that period, you don't see much activity going on within black America as far as protecting its interests. As a matter of fact, I think by '83, that's when you start to see the rise of Jesse Jackson as a political leader, because the effective apparatus, Congressional Black Caucus, they didn't do anything. They didn't organize people. You saw him in '83 and '84. And I believe after in 89, Jackson didn't do anything, although he collected like 1,200 delegates. He also collected about 7 million votes. But after 88, 89, it just collapsed because he didn't do anything by building an apparatus.
HNIC.
Head Negro in charge. Now,
what does that phrase mean?
Well, that's, okay, there's two ways. The polite, I'm using the polite term, head Negro. The controversial term is the head nigger. Now, the head nigger was basically on the slave plantation, that slave driver who was in charge of the slave gang of other blacks. So the head Negro or the head nigger has always been sort of like, it's been used ironically. Some black folks would say, yeah, I'm the head nigger in charge, blah, 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 blah. But I use it as a way of symbolizing that this head Negro in charge syndrome is basically symbolic politics. These people don't particularly, if you really pay attention, they don't seemingly to be interested in holding effective power. They never run for offices in which they can run. They always run for...
You mean which they can win?
In which they can win. They always, thank you, they always basically run for offices in which they know they are not going to win. Like for Jesse Jackson, 2 presidential campaigns, for Al Sharpton, office of the mayor, but they never run for offices in which they can win. I surmise that basically it's because they don't really want to be responsible and then you have to do constituent service and things like that.
Expand that to your criticism of Cornel West, who's also on this,
well,
not an elected official.
No, but Cornel West is part of the problem, is that he is a part of a trend of what I'm calling market intellectuals. Basically, like I said before, they sell attitude. They basically don't have ideas or a viewpoint to try to help people figure out what is going on. I think West basically has been very successful as coming across as an engaged intellectual. He has a particular speaking style. He sounds very soulful and things like that. But every time I ask somebody, well, what idea has he actually said? Everybody always says, you know, he's a great speaker. I said, well, what has, well, he's a great speaker, Norman. And so after a while, you begin to realize that he doesn't really say anything, but he's a great speaker. And to me, this is part of one of the problems of African-American political culture. It has a tendency to produce charismatic leaders who are very good at rousing people. But one of the downfalls, or one of the downsides of black leadership is like they don't have any organizational capabilities. King, Malcolm X, various other people, if you really think about these gentlemen, after they left, they never left behind an effective organization.